Shabbat Shalom. Shalom. We just returned from California, and over these past 10 days, there was one Uber ride that was very memorable. And when we entered the car, I didn't recognize the origin of the name of the driver, so I asked him, "Where are you from?" And he shared with me he was from Iran, but Armenian originally. And he asked me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "From Jerusalem." He got very excited because he just returned from pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and he pointed to a cross that was hanging from his rear view mirror. And he visited the Armenian quarter, of course, in Jerusalem, next to where I grew up. On the other side, in the Jewish quarter, in the old city, and spoke about my experiences there. Anyway, he told us his story, that he'd grown up in Iran as a minority, Eastern Orthodox Christian. And there was a golden age in Iran, a beautiful time, and he had many neighbors, Muslim and Jewish, and they all spent time together and saw each other in each other's homes, long meals. And then the Islamic Revolution happened, and Khomeini came to power. He said everything changed. And suddenly his Muslim neighbors said, "We can't come to your house anymore because it's considered haram, forbidden for Muslims to visit a Christian's house." And so he said, where does this come from? And his grandfather, who was also a student of all religions of Quran, said, "Point to me in the Quran where it says a Muslim cannot visit a Christian's house. And even tell me where it says in the Quran that a Muslim cannot drink. It says it's not encouraged, but it doesn't prohibit everything. And this is extremism." And so anyhow, his family ended up leaving because of the discrimination and the repressive measures, and led them to Los Angeles. And he spoke about, when we spoke together, about how religion should be about helping us become more human, not only become more a Jew or more a Christian or more a Muslim, but how to become a better human being. And he said, well, I aspire in my home to be a better religious person, and in the public, I just want to be a human being. We spoke about how fanatics in the Middle East were creating such strife and violence. So our Torah portion this week is a Torah portion that begins the story of the Exodus and the enslavement in Egypt. And at the beginning, Joseph goes down with his whole family, 70 souls, to Egypt, and they're welcomed by Pharaoh, and they have choice lands for their pastures, and everyone is happy and thriving and flourishing. But then as we hear, a new Pharaoh comes into the land of Egypt, and suddenly starts to rise up the fear of his citizens against the children of Israel. Well, look how numerous they've become. And when the Torah uses verbs in Hebrew as swarming, like the children of Israel swarmed, there was insects. The Egyptians saw the Israelites as insects. On the other side of Pharaoh, we have Moses. So we know Moses goes out to find out about his Jewish roots, and he sees an Egyptian hitting a Jew. He kills the Egyptian, but that's not it. When he sees two Jews argue, he also says, what are you doing? And later on, when he flees and he goes to Midian, he sees the sheep of a shepherdess being threatened by shepherds. All of them are Midianites, non-Jewish, but he nonetheless rises to their defense because that's the right thing to do, the human thing to do. He follows the impulse to justice. And so part of our message of this foundational story of ours, of the Exodus, of where we come from, is a story about our humanity, and of a universal story where we stop seeing others as human beings and we start to obey the pharaohs. We see where it leads us to enslavement, to oppression, and we begin to see others as haram, as forbidden to us. But rather, we learn, as the Torah says over and over from this story, do not mistreat a stranger because you were strangers. And so it's teach us every life is precious, every person is worthy. And that danger of that narrow thinking, that fanaticism. I am this and they are that, and they're insects and I'm a human being. There's nothing that links us together, or they will come against us. And so the Torah wants us to leave such Egypts, such places, and go to places, our promised lands, places where people get along and find their common humanity and flourish together, learning about each other's paths to life and to wisdom, to God. To be not as Pharaoh, but as Moses, standing up for all human beings. Shabbat Shalom.